All right, everybody, we are here on November the 3rd, and this will be a very special YouTube video. It's my first commentary podcast, and this is a celebration for one of the biggest actors in Hollywood. This is Godzilla's 59th birthday, and it was 59 years ago to this day that the very first Godzilla movie, called Gojira, aired in Japan. It was an Ishiro Honda movie, and we are going to play that movie, and we are going to commentary over it. I'm here, and I have a special guest, my friend.
Hello, I'm Brad Moore. I design heavy metal album covers and t-shirts and posters for underground metal bands and horror comic books. I'm glad to be here.
And we are both huge Godzilla fans. We are going to commentate on everything we see on the screen. We will be watching the original Japanese version. If you want to watch this, you can go find your own version. And I am not going to show anything or play any sound because I don't want to be sued. So, here we go. If you want to watch your own version, go find it, put it in your DVD player, load it up on your computer, however you want to see it. Cue it up to 000 and push play in 3, 2, 1, play. All right, let's see what happens. Oh, this is going to look awesome in black and white.
Well, you know, this is one of this is actually the key giant monster movie of that started in the 50s, because Ray Harryhausen had done The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which was a surprise hit. Now, the special effects designer for Toho was, of course, Eiji Tsuburaya, and I'm probably mispronouncing that.
Tsuburaya,
yes. And he was a big fan of the original King Kong and enjoyed any kind of film that utilized stop motion. But in Japan, stop motion was more of a gimmick and not really utilized a lot. So his idea of what later became suit motion or suitmation is actually the key to this whole kaiju era, which began with this movie.
And, you know, a lot of people will say that King Kong was the first giant monster movie, and I think they'd be right. But I think that this movie that we're about to watch is a lot more impactful than King Kong or The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, because it is political and social commentary on post-war Japan and on the civilization that has spawned out of post-war Japan and how they deal with this horrible disaster.
I completely agree with that. The idea that the atomic mutation or the radiation causing the mutations was not a scare tactic, but a real fear in this era. Not that the fear has gone away, but it was a new fear for a new era. And the films like this, starting with this one, really reflected that fear in society as a whole, not just in Japan, even though they were the ones to first feel the true effects of the atomic bomb. But later on, through efforts like this and other creativity in the 50s, movies that are considered B movies like Tarantula and the Black Scorpion and all that stuff, that the idea of the radioactive scare is symbolized by a giant creature. In other words, something that can wreck society, something that comes from out of somewhere else, because we live in this protected dome, and it enters that dome and we have no protection from it and can't understand it.
Now, one of the things that we just talked over was the main difference between this movie and the American version, which was the silent opening credits. And the opening credits are played over the Godzilla Death March by Akira Ifukube. Most of the people on this movie who made it were self-taught. They were self-taught directors, they were self-taught special effects people, self-taught music composers, except for the actors, I think, right?
That does sound right. I think the actors were strictly from theater, and a few people that were amateurs but had some skill involved.
Now, this scene that we're seeing now, the explosion at sea, was based on a real-life incident.
It was called Castle Bravo. It was a hydrogen bomb test that affected a Japanese fishing vessel.
So what it was also known as was the Lucky Dragon number 5.
Right, yes.
That was the ship that was destroyed because the ship was not updated with the newer equipment system like the radio, so they didn't get the notice that the rest of the harbor got, which was don't go out today because the Americans are testing atomic bombs. And there was a huge tuna scare and a fish scare in Japan that year because they didn't know whether or not it was safe to consume the fishing, which ties right back into the legend of Odo Island when we hear it later, that, you know, once you overfish the sea, this horrible thing called Godzilla is going to come out and attack you.
Yeah.
And that's what I think gives Godzilla a lot of weight in this movie, is that legend and that mythic status, as opposed to something like a tarantula or a giant mantis, which is just a giantized animal.
It is. The giantized animal genre came out of Godzilla because a lot of Americans saw Godzilla as simply a giant lizard or just a dinosaur. But see, Americans also see a dinosaur as a giant lizard. So America's idea, America being based on Henry Ford and the whole factory idea, you be a replaceable cog in a smoothly working machine. Let's keep making these things. So what's the next giant animal? And then it was a spider. And then it was something else and something else. And so the idea of taking an animal out of its natural habitat and then injecting it with incredible power, see, that's, again, like the atomic bomb, taking it out of its element and then using it in a destructive way, is terrifying to human beings.
The other thing you have that's a difference in these Ishiro Honda movies and Toho movies versus American science fiction movies with giant animals is that the giant animal is generally a representation of communism at some level.
I agree with that. It's also, and communism was seen as a threat just as much as radioactivity. And if you think about that, it really was. The idea of the foreign element, or, what they used to call the yellow peril back in the racist days and all that.
The Red Menace.
The Red Menace as well. Better, what was it?
Better dead than red.
Better dead than red, yeah. And that was actually a slogan. People believed that. And American peoples were hypnotized to believe that. And to believe that they were un-American if they didn't believe that.
The fourth Indiana Jones movie, for all its flaws, does a really good job when it opens up with that Better Dead Than Red rally on the campus where Indy teaches.
Oh, you're talking about the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, it's a bad movie, but that's really good because it gets the era right. It's era appropriate. And that's the
Although
kind
I can't stand Shia LaBeouf.
None of us can.
Oh,
None of us
goodness.
can. Don't worry. You're among friends.
I was terrified that they were grooming him to be the next Indiana Jones.
You know what the new rumor is now?
What?
Indiana Jones.
Oh, a woman. Well, that's the kick now. Is that
Yeah.
Doctor Who is a woman now,
Yeah.
so Indiana Jones. All right, so what?
So what we're seeing here, we've seen, go back to Godzilla, we've seen another shipping disaster, and the shipping company is still trying to deal with it. They don't know what the hell's happening. The first shipping disaster, the Lucky Dragon number 5, they think, okay, that might have been a fluke, but now something else has happened on the exact same course.
And we've been seeing that glow under the ocean. Of
Yeah.
course, if you're not familiar with the movie and had never seen it, you don't know what the glow is. Now, in King Kong versus Godzilla, that glow is named. It's the something. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're
when
talking about, but damn it, I
by the
forgot
eyes
about
were
it.
the Lumencraft. Wow,
It's a German word,
yes,
isn't
it's
it?
escaping me right now. The something glow, which says that they find it near nuclear reactors and things
Yeah.
like that. And I cannot, at this moment, I'll think of it in a minute, but I can't do it now. But anyway, we've been seeing that glow into the ocean.
And now, I guess we're seeing the survivors. Is this Ogata? No, this isn't
isn't.
Ogata.
No, that's just
He's
an
not shown up
unnamed
yet.
fisherman.
An unnamed fisherman, right. So one of the main differences I guess we should talk about is Mr. Perry Mason himself, Raymond Burr, is not in this movie.
That's right.
He is in the other movie, what some call a bastardization, which is Godzilla King of the Monsters. And the reason a lot of people call it a bastardization is because they change the dialogue and they insert Raymond Burr at weird points in the movie.
Yeah.
And he's always got that standard Perry Mason, Your Honor, may I cross-examine the witness face? Because he's not in the movie.
You can tell he's not in the movie. It's like,
Oh, I
meanwhile, in a nearby dimension,
Yeah, with a palm tree stuck nearby him to make it look like he's outside.
And he's wiping sweat. He wipes sweat quite a bit. That's his direction.
Now, I will say that the one thing that this doesn't have that one has is Raymond Burr's narration of the Godzilla attack.
Yeah.
I love Raymond Burr's narration of that first Godzilla attack.
Well, America always thinks that we have to have cue cards or we have to have narration to explain what's going on, and sadly that sometimes is true.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate to say that, but sadly it's true. In Europe, they'll who was it? It was Godard, a famous French filmmaker, who said a film has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in that order in the slightest bit.
Yeah.
And he was right.
Yeah,
But in America, it's the assembly line. It's A plus B equals C, and that's
Yeah.
it. That's all it can be,
And unfortunately, right now, Hollywood, the assembly line is turning out a lot of garbage, but we'll talk about that later.
It always has. It always has. Yeah, you have to pick and choose. And remember, some people absolutely love the garbage, and we're accused of that too.
That's true.
You and I are accused
This is true.
of liking, substandard. But it's like we always say, but you're missing the point, or you're missing the
subtext.
the hidden treasure that's in this. If you could just get it, the same with comic books. Some people just think, oh, it's just drivel and all that. I said, but if you really read the good ones, you wouldn't think that. But they don't ever see the good ones.
Of course not.
They haven't seen them.
They don't care.
No, well, you're right. They don't care to investigate, but they haven't seen them.
So here, what we've talked over is we've talked over the entrance of Odo Island, and now this is Ogata.
And now a raft is coming.
Yes, this is where we see one of the three main characters. The three main characters outside of Dr. Yamane in this movie are Ogata, Dr. Serizawa, and Emiko Yamane. And their love triangle plays a very important role in the resolution of the story. It's a subplot, but it's a very good subplot.
Now, Dr. Sarazawa, he's got the eye patch in this, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And you automatically get the idea of what a serious but lonely individual he is. And the eye patch tells you that, but before his subtext is actually in there.
Well, when you get to know his character, you find out he's a war hero.
Yes.
So, it makes sense. Dr. Yamane and his daughter represent the changing generations in Japan. Dr. Yamane is very much the pre-war Japan, whereas it's very traditionalist. It's very, by the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And he would want his daughter to marry somebody like Dr. Yamane, somebody who's got it all together, somebody who's a famous scientist like he is, plus he's a war hero. But Emiko doesn't care about that.
Well, Japan being similar to America in that sense, we're afraid of the changes that were happening. And after the Second World War, major changes in society and just the world over were happening because we had the youth explosion. And a lot of people think the youth explosion was just in America. No, it was worldwide.
Nope.
No, it's called a baby boom for a reason. And then, of course, youth culture grows out of that. And it turned out that a lot of the tradition, and Japan being a very tradition-based nation, a lot of traditions were not falling away, but just being changed and eroded in certain ways. And there was a big fear about that.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to say was, if you look at this movie, a lot of the women like Emiko wear Western clothing.
Yes.
That was very new at the time period, and they even have a small TV set in their house, which is the encroaching westernization of America.
Except the small TVs were made in Japan. Remember?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they were imported. Yeah.
So we're seeing
Magnavox is really Japan.
Yeah, exactly. We're seeing an old helicopter flying in, which if we were watching the American version would have been Raymond Burr getting off.
Yeah, it's an American. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's just got the Japanese flag on the side of it. And they're trying to figure out what's going on, and some of these Odo Island people have whispered about Godzilla.
Because there's something's eating all the fish, because they said, there must be an animal in the sea scaring the fish away or eating the fish. And of course, like I said, anybody who's not familiar with Godzilla and maybe seeing this movie for the first time in the past or now has no mental picture of what Godzilla's going to be.
This is so good. It's so creepy, the ceremony is. And I mean, when Raymond Burr is in it, going back to Raymond Burr, he does provide context for stupid Americans like me who don't know anything about like these traditions right away.
I wouldn't say I know them. I mean, I just know them from these movies and what I've read.
But the other thing is that, it's very ethereal. The black and white makes it feel like a documentary almost. And remember, Ishiro Honda wanted to make documentaries.
Yes, that's right, he did. And that's actually why a lot of this has that stylized effect that the older films used to have, where it's not based on theater anymore.
Yeah.
It was that the film had become its own thing. Whereas early films were shot in tableau. It's like you're filming a stage play.
Right.
And then it finally broke away to film as its own language. And now film has changed so much. Again, that's not even really film. It's not even celluloid anymore. Now it's all pixels, and it's a whole different ball game. But I like these old ones here. I also am a big fan of Technicolor, which now you can't.
Yeah.
You can't replicate that at all. Even with the greatest computer, you can't get the Technicolor look that those film strips had.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's like the special effects in this movie. A lot of people nowadays, if they're younger than me, might laugh at the special effects in this movie.
Yeah.
But remember, with the problem a lot of people have with CGI is that none of that garbage is there.
Yeah, it's weightless.
With this, it has weight. Like right now, we're watching a model of the harbor being at Odo Island being ripped apart by this storm, and these poor people are inside this rickety shack that's going back and forth, back and forth. I mean, it's really, really
Dust
creepy.
is falling on them, and I'm sure it's leaking somewhere. And now we see the entire hut moving.
And again, we don't know what's doing it. It is such a good way to set up for a film.
And the haunting black and white look. It's kind of like the Ingmar Bergman films. He was one of the best He made some of the best films in black and white I've ever seen in my life. But it was his cinematographer that he picked that really gave him that look.
So one of our characters just saw probably an outline of Godzilla when a flash happened and he freaked out, it is such a Lovecraftian moment.
Oh, yeah.
You don't see the monster, but you see the character's reaction to the monster.
And the effect the monster has without seeing the monster. The place is wrecking now. Everybody's covered their heads and the roof is caving in. And you did see a leg go by, did you?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. There was a huge leg, or at least a moving pile of flesh moving by.
It feels so criminal not to have Akira Ifukube's music played over this. Because the man is a genius. All of Akira Ifukube's soundtracks are haunting, and they're so melodic.
And equal to the John Williams stuff that Americans are familiar with, the Star Wars and all the others.
And
They're
Jaws.
Very Jaws.
Which is
absolutely equal to it.
Jaws has a lot of similarities with Godzilla. Both in the fact that they both set up this mystery of a big creature, and we neither see the creature until close to the end.
The effects in Jaws kind of broke down. And what they did was they used music to replace the effect. Mm-hmm. And that was the key to the music and the soundtrack.
Yeah, that working together. Because music, of course, creates images in your head anyway.
Yeah.
And so the appropriate music, if the visual is not there or the visual has to be replaced, works perfectly, especially in the hands of a skilled director.
It's really cool to get a look at what what everybody's wearing in these, because they're all dressed the same, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Well, but that's a society back then in Japan was a uniformity.
This is true.
Yeah, the school uniforms were the same. If you went to work, your work uniform was the same as your coworkers, and the suits were very similar.
They still have school uniforms over there, don't they?
Yes, they do. But the kids, the students in Japan take a much larger account of themselves in Japan than we do in America. In fact, they don't have janitors at the schools in Japan. Did you know that? The kids come in on weekends and after classes and do all the cleaning. And therefore, yes, well, it's not as punishment, because therefore they keep that place fairly spotless as it is, so that the workload is much less and they can get out of there sooner.
Yeah.
It teaches them a lot. I wish we did that here.
Yeah, we can't do that here. Look at the old style mic he's speaking into.
That guy's in King Kong versus Godzilla.
He is?
Yes, he is. He's the one when he says, take a telegram, and he's writing it down. Taco's goes, find me a monster, get me a monster. That's exactly 9 words, sir.
Okay,
that's
so
him.
I guess now that we said that, we should bring this fact up too, that Toho was a factory just as much as Hollywood is now. But all these actors, you will see them crop up in other Godzilla movies.
Over
like
and over again.
Guy.
The same guy who's the general in almost every one of them.
That's true.
Yeah, he's got the white
general,
gloves, and he's on the giant walkie-talkie.
Yeah. Of course, Akira Takarada, I think it's been in almost every Godzilla movie, starting off in this one.
Starting with this one, yeah.
Yeah. The guy who's on screen now talking to the, I guess this is their Senate.
Yeah, he's talking about the Yeti.
Yeah, is Dr. Yamane. He is the quintessential scientist.
Well, films like this had to have that back then. People didn't even know the names of dinosaurs. You had to have the authority figure scientist, the two-fisted scientist, let's say, who comes in and explains what you need to know or what the surrounding throng needs to know, and suddenly they're all equipped with the knowledge it takes to defeat the foe.
I love this scene now where this is the ship is going off to find out what's going on this route.
There's Serizawa.
Yes, we just saw Serizawa, everybody's favorite scientist. We just saw Emiko for the first time. So
and she stands out.
Oh man, she's gorgeous, isn't she?
She's very photogenic. I mean, she stood out in that whole crowd scene instantly.
And I love the ribbons that they have on the ship, the streamers, because nobody knows if the ship is coming back yet.
That's right.
Because it might have the same fate. And right now, Emiko is talking to Ogata, her real love interest. This is Ogata.
Now, see, he's what's that actor's name? I can't pull it out of my head.
Damn it!
Oh, I had it too, and it leaked right out of the back of my head.
How do I not know?
And he's in several of these.
He is, and so is Emiko.
And he's in King Kong Escapes. We were talking about that earlier. I can't believe this. It's gone past me. It's not James Yagi. It's hopefully it'll come to me.
Of course it will. Your brain is fired up right now, so you'll remember it.
Yeah, and I've just had half a pizza.
Yeah, exactly. We're both like that. The black and white in this is beautiful.
Yeah. Absolutely
If you
magnificent.
are somebody who refuses to watch black and white movies, then you are missing out.
Yeah, you need your arms and legs cut off then. But I have friends. I actually have friends who will not watch a black and white movie or a subtitled movie. They won't do it.
Really?
Yeah, they won't do it.
I watch subtitled movies a lot,
Oh,
but
me
I
too.
refuse to watch.
Half of my film collection is subtitled.
I refuse to watch anime subtitled because the subtitles get in the way of the color in the show.
I agree with that. And there's some great movies that, like, especially the European directors I like, that when I'm reading the subtitles, I finally got to see the film 3 or 4 times to stop reading the subtitles so I can watch the visual.
Oh, yeah.
Because I realized I was missing some really incredible stuff.
So what we're seeing now is we're seeing the Geiger counter, and the guy's in his radioactivity gear, and we're getting the first hints that something here might be radioactive. We're seeing the difference also in the Odo Island people who are dressed like traditional Japanese.
Yeah, and the military really stand out as completely different. You know, again, let's go back to King Kong Escapes for just a second. The scene where this actor, boy, I wish his name would come to me. He walks up, he's in no uniform, he's just in a white shirt, no tie, nothing. He goes, "I'm from the UN." They instantly believe it, hand him a gun, and he controls the entire army. They go, "Listen to this man, listen to what he says." That's it. That's all it takes. He shows no ID whatsoever. "I'm from the UN." Great, here's a gun.
right.
Well, because he's got that hero, he's got that whole hero cast
You're
about
from
him.
the UN. Here's a gun.
Yeah, it's like, "Hi, you're obviously genetically from the UN."
Yeah, exactly. We don't need to see any ID or this isn't important.
I love the location here. And they don't realize. Oh, would it be spoiling anything if I tell people where they're?
Go ahead.
Well, they're in a depressed area, not a crevice, but a pushed-in area, and they're testing for radiation. And the radiation, of course, is strontium-90.
Mm-hmm.
Now then, I don't know. Should we? Well, because they're not seeing this visually.
They're not seeing it visually, so tell them as much as we can.
Okay, well, they're going to step back and they're going to look at the shape of the area they're in, and smart viewers will probably figure out what I'm going to say. The shape is a what?
A
Zach?
foot.
A footprint.
And look at what they
a
just
trilobite.
found. A trilobite, just like the coelacanth.
Exactly like the coelacanth that we talked about just prior to starting this. The coelacanth was a fish that was believed to be extinct 320 million years ago. And yet in 1938, a live one was caught, and since then several live ones have been caught, proving that a lot of scientific theories we had are, I'm not going to say bunk or wrong, just were mistaken.
Well, that's why it's a theory, because it can always be altered. It can always be changed.
Right. And I don't mean to disparage anything about science. It's just they discovered, this turned out to be false. And that leads credence to believability in this movie. If that turned out to be false, is it so impossible that another prehistoric creature could be alive? And several others. And of course, this one's impossibly huge and incredibly powerful and all that. But that's the imagination part. That's the mythological part of it.
And it's not impossibly huge when you listen to people from the Royal Society of Science talk about how much we don't know about the ocean.
That's right. When they were talking earlier about the abyssal regions of the Earth, that there are giant pockets and caverns that we haven't even remotely begun to explore, or now.
We still rarely know what's on the Marianas Trench. Or inside.
It's been said since I was a child that we know less about the oceans and we know more about the space, outer space around us than we do about the oceans that are on our planet.
It's because of the water pressure. Okay, guys, we're about to see him, the big G-Man on his birthday.
Here he comes.
Oh, man, those old cameras are awesome, because I love the fact that they were running towards the thing. They were running with picks and guns. Because
with the Frankenstein thing,
but they were going to fight for their village, fight for their little thing that they got, and then they see the damn thing. They see how big it is, and they just turn into a fleeing mob of villagers.
Yeah, and then Godzilla himself. That's pretty frightening. For the 50s, that's very frightening.
I'd say it's pretty frightening for now.
Yeah.
And if somebody out there hasn't seen this movie, I don't know why you would listen to this if you haven't seen it, though.
Maybe this will encourage them to see it.
Hopefully it will.
Well, it's in black and white. They probably ignored this one.
That's true, and this is the first one.
And this is considered by many the very best one.
Yeah, I think it is. Now, I've always said that this is, like I say, political social commentary. And I've defended this movie in English classes where the professor laughed at it. And by the time I was done talking about it, he agreed with me. Because this is an anti-war movie.
Yes, it is.
Because remember, the people who were in this movie, who were drafted into the Japanese Imperial Army, Honda, Tsuburaya, and Tanaka, were pacifists. They didn't want to fight. But they were paraded back after the war through post-war Tokyo, through Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They had seen the destruction of the atom bombs. So when we see later on what happens to Tokyo, that should hold weight to you.
Yes, it should. The movie being anti-military in that sense is not the Rudolf Zallinger painting of the Tyrannosaurus, but it's not anti-science, and that's funny
No.
because science brought about the atomic bomb, but science in this movie is of course going to be championed as our savior. You know, as what's going to save us against this menace from our prehistoric past.
Well,
I love these pictures of the old dinosaurs.
Well, remember Honda's philosophy that he was very anti-religious too,
Yeah, he
because he
was.
always said, "Where's all the love and the compassion that all these world religions claim to
Well,
prompt?"
because, as we
And so,
said,
it's humanist. It's a humanist.
Religion
picture.
gets taken over by politics, and politics is sometimes, very often, a poison. And I love that. That's based on the clay sculpture
Oh, it's
that
so
the
good.
suit was molded from. But and that's a great picture because it looks like a matte painting in that sense.
It does.
But yeah, and like I said, I don't want to get into the religious and political thing too much. But like I said, religion has been taken over by politics and people who say we're going to do this in the name of this God and we're doing that. And if people studied the religion and were actually spiritual themselves, they'd realize that that's bunk and that wasn't directed by that religion. This war was not started for this religion and that. It's just that's the excuse used, and everybody buys it.
We will we'll save the rest of the religious talk for when we do Mothra commentary because that movie actively has religious iconography in it.
It does, yes, it does.
So back to Godzilla. Dr. Yamane is talking to these politician people about the pictures of Godzilla, and they've actually had a discussion about whether or not they should tell the world about it.
Yeah, like they won't find out about a 300-foot long lizard.
Right.
that can pretty much destroy the army or whatever. I've always wished that in King Kong versus Godzilla, King Kong had fought this version of Godzilla.
If you were doing this movie today, and you and I had access to be able to make this movie today, is there anything that you would change or update?
With Godzilla?
Or any of it? Any of it that like we're reshooting it entirely. You can make any Godzilla you want. What would you change?
His appearance wouldn't change very much because that's Godzilla. I mean, you don't. We saw what happened in 1999 when the Americans tried to change Godzilla with the Matthew Broderick
That is the
film.
movie which shall not be named.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's the one that we just can't get into. It's just and there are people who like that. Fine if you like it, but we saw what happened. That movie should have been titled anything but Godzilla. But what would I change? What would I change? I would improve the suit only in the sense that it needs to be more mobile. And a little more tail action and all that stuff. But really, if we were allowed to make it in the day that it was made here, I don't think we could do any better than this.
I don't think so either, because nobody could.
No, this was other than stop motion, this was the height of the technology that was available at the time.
You know, a funny story is that when they were planning this movie, Honda and Tsuburaya would go through Tokyo and they would map out the destruction scene. And there's a famous story that they went to a department store. They got on top of the department store. They got access to the roof and they were drawing down the plan. And Honda was saying, we're going to plant a bomb here. We're going to plant a bomb here.
Yeah,
and the guard in the department store thought they were international terrorists and almost had Honda and Tsuburaya arrested. Which is a funny story, but it goes to show you how close they were in setting up the sets for this movie.
Well, yeah, that reminds me of a story about the animators at Warner Brothers, and they were working on a Daffy Duck cartoon, and they would often go to the roof to work out some of the action that's going to happen in it. And of course, they would each play a part according to the script. And people in the surrounding buildings would all stop their work and stand at the windows and watch the animators on the roof of the Warner Brothers building working out and pretending to have big cardboard hammers and hitting each other and all that stuff. And they would stop to do that, and then they would run back in and write down what they're doing. And sometimes an hour later, back up on the roof, and they go, "Oh, we found out something we didn't cover, or this doesn't work."
Yeah.
And they'd act it out again. One of my favorite stop motion guys is a guy named Jim Danforth. When he was 26 years old, he was in charge of doing the animation for When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth. And he was newly married towards the end of the film. And his wife came in and saw, in horror, found him on his hands and knees with a G.I. Joe in his mouth. He was roaring and pushing it around and dropping it out of his mouth. And she looked at him like, "What are you doing?" And he says, "With the stop motion animation I have to do," he goes, "I sometimes have to act out the motion myself to know where the weight shifts to get it to look believable." His wife was ready to pack her bags and leave.
So what we're seeing now is we're seeing the groups, the Senate thing, we're seeing their reaction to this news, and it erupts into chaos because of the implication of atomic testing.
Right, yeah.
And they never said directly who was doing the atomic testing.
No.
But it was a country with a bunch of stars on their flag in red, white, and blue colors.
So I wonder who that is.
Yeah, exactly. Godzilla are us.
And see, this affects the people in the city. We've been seeing a lot of the people in the country. But because their tuna, they rely a lot on fish for their food and all that stuff, and their tuna is all ruined by the radiation, the bomb testing. And of course, they think it's that. Godzilla himself emits radiation, and so he's part of the problem in that sense too, because he actually symbolizes radioactivity and destruction.
So we talked over a scene that's cut out of the American movie. The woman on the train was talking about how they'll have to find shelter soon. They'll have to find shelters like a fallout shelter.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes though is when they said, "We better run to Hokkaido," and it cuts to the newsman. It says, "Don't go to Hokkaido." Oh, that's in King Kong versus Godzilla. Don't go to Hokkaido. The second he says that, of course, it shows the train going to Hokkaido and Godzilla walking right on the tracks.
Yeah, Godzilla always has to destroy a train in these movies.
Oh yeah. Well, you know why? Because in King Kong, the original King Kong, he destroyed an elevated train, and that became a thing that happens in these movies. In Black Scorpion, the giant scorpion's going along a train track and attacks a passenger train.
Not only that, but there's that pagoda, that castle that Godzilla has to destroy in everyone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the Diet Building that's in the center of Tokyo, not in the center, but in Tokyo, which King Kong actually stands on in one of those.
We're watching stock footage from World War II.
Blended perfectly in the real film, though. You would swear they almost filmed, except that we know mentally, but it's blended perfectly into the film.
So, on the concept of World War II, E.G. Tsuburaya was hired by the Japanese government to make a stock footage propaganda flick of Japanese Zeros dive bombing Pearl Harbor, model ships on Battleship Row. And he made this, and then when MacArthur's film censors got there, they thought it was real footage.
Oh, yeah.
They thought it was found footage from the actual attack. That's how good it was. So
it's believable.
You may laugh at it today, but remember, 50 years from now, people will be laughing at your movies because of the special effects. That's the nature of it.
Yeah, and by the way, that underwater glow I couldn't think of as Lumenkoff lights.
I told you you'd think of it.
Yeah, Lumenkoff lights. And right when you were saying that, you said something with an L and it clicked in my head.
Yeah.
So now we're back in a hut.
No,
we're in an office.
Yamane house.
Yes. And they're talking about the professor, who's a zoologist, who would rather study Godzilla than kill him.
Of course.
Because remember, the movie is pro-science.
Yeah.
And so Serizawa is, of course, he's going to, as we know, he's a tragic figure, but he's also a war hero as well, which gives credence to the things that he knows. In other words, we can trust his knowledge, his suggestions. Oh, look, there's a Stegosaurus skeleton on that man's desk. It's a model of one, not a real one.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, foreshadowing, of course. And because we haven't seen Godzilla in whole. We've seen his face and his upper arms and a little bit of one leg, and that's it so far. Now, if I were directing, I think maybe I would have shown his teeth and not shown his whole face just yet. I might have changed that. Just show the roaring mouth and the claws and left it at that when the villagers were running from him.
Yeah.
When we saw him come over the hill. However, that shot of him can't be beat. It just can't.
And the funny thing is that it's a puppet.
Yeah, it is. It's a rod puppet.
And it's so good that, who cares what it is?
No, that's not a miniature. Okay, this is a miniature.
And now here's number one of the rules about living in a Japanese kaiju movie: never go out on a boat, never go out on a party boat,
right?
Because kaiju always fuck up your nightlife.
They do, and they always attack the boat from behind or from the side.
Yeah, they do. They do in all of them. They always screw up your nightlife.
And there's always a dance happening.
Always.
Anytime groups of people are caught in a dance, even the psychedelic, the smog monster, they're in there doing their psychedelic dances and painting on their faces, and the creature attacks during the dance.
Exactly.
There's the girl from the train.
Yep.
She goes, "Oh, it was so fun on the train." Uh-oh. And now Godzilla's rising from the ocean. Oh,
God, it's such a crime that I can't play the Afukube score.
Yeah, and he's going, "It's Godzilla, it's Godzilla."
Oh, man.
They all know his name right away because, of course, he's hit the news by now.
Yeah, so who wouldn't know his name?
Right, yeah. Well, now, but I keep referring to King Kong versus Godzilla because it was actually the first Godzilla movie that I saw. But, the tail looks awesome there.
I know,
They say when Godzilla arrives, the man in the helicopter goes, "It's Godzilla," and you see him breaking free from the iceberg. It cuts to a newsman saying, "The world is stunned to find out that prehistoric creatures live in modern world." Godzilla has already attacked the world 2 times before, in only 5 or 6 years before that movie.
Yeah, exactly.
This one included. This one especially.
And we know for a fact at Raids Again, he didn't die.
That's right.
You just froze him.
Yeah, and that's why he comes out of an iceberg in that one. And actually, in all the other ones, it's hinted that he might die, but he never. As you know, he never does.
I've got a way though. If I ever get the rights to Godzilla, to how I'm going to explain that.
What is it?
I'm going to have it be like in 1954 is the only time Godzilla showed up, but nobody knows about him. Nobody knows about Godzilla except the people who were affected by Godzilla, because they told people outside of Japan that what destroyed Tokyo was a failed atomic test.
So no one took any pictures of Godzilla whatsoever? Or?
The ones that exist are laughed at.
Oh, I get it. Of course. Just like UFO phenomenon.
Yeah.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
All Bigfoot photos and movies are all out of focus.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And why is that?
Yeah. So in other words, if I were making a Godzilla movie,
he's out of focus the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Or it would be done in a 1950s camera, his attack on Tokyo.
Oh, right, yeah.
And everybody would have laughed at it until something happens. Until shit starts to go down again.
Yeah, and then they look at the film again and go, "Oh my God, this is the linchpin of what we need to do."
I mean that's because the problem in the Showa series, especially in the later Showa series, is all the alien invasion plots. Every time there's an alien invasion plot, people are stunned that aliens exist.
In Doctor Who, they do that. How many aliens have attacked the world? But the next time it happens, they're all in total disbelief.
Oh, I know, right?
They go, "Aliens, you've got to be joking." It's like, "I'm joking. Was I joking the other 24 times it happened?"
Yeah, exactly. You could say that UNIT could cover up like a part of that, but they're not going to cover up every single one.
Well, like in Kolchak the Night Stalker, his boss, Vincenzo, never believes the stories he tells. After the 5th or 6th one, I would start believing.
Yeah.
22 of them later, he's going, "Kolchak, we can't print this."
I like to imagine that if you go into watching the Showa series, I like to pretend that that's happening in Japan in the 60s. Mm-hmm. Our movies are happening in America in the 60s, and Doctor Who is happening in England during the 60s.
I would rather, yeah. Because it worked better back then. It was more mysterious back then.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know, it was more, it was like, when we didn't know, we hadn't really been to all the places on the earth yet. We didn't know how many societies.
We still haven't.
It's true, there are some places we still haven't. And that led a lot more mystery. Mm-hmm. It was possible that King Kong Skull Island could have existed.
Yeah.
And people thought that, they were like, "Wow, we don't know, it could be." That's pretty terrifying. And now we're all cynical and laughing. "Oh, now there's no way. So they have to come up with wilder and wilder theories to support these things. But like in the recent spate of Marvel movies, which I enjoy those a great deal, they don't worry about too much plausible explanation. I don't mean that it's just so out there that it's crazy, but like Iron Man has things appearing in and out of little pockets in his suit that couldn't possibly really happen. But you're like, where's the fuel? Where does he carry the fuel that that flies him? So some people say, "Well, it's the sun." All right, I'll believe that. But where do these rocket things come out? Well, that's this and this. And so after a while, it's like, all right, so if you just explain it, even if it's implausible, that's the explanation.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
It has to be pseudoscientific at the very best.
In the beginning, it has to.
Yeah.
You start that way, and then you're supposed to say, "But that explains all of it."
Yeah,
and that's fine, I guess. I guess it is. I mean, when fantasy films became too literal, it took the fantasy out. So it was like, yeah, you're right. We don't want it to be. And Ray Harryhausen himself said he goes, "You're not really supposed to look so close that you analyze the fantasy out of it." And he was right. If you do that, then you've lost the point.
I mean, I totally agree with that, and I think a lot of movies have that flaw today.
Yes, I think that, yeah. But I mean, and why is it that nothing's impressive anymore? When Godzilla Gojira was made, it was people were stunned. It was compared to the original King Kong in 1933. That original movie was the world's first blockbuster movie. It was actually, I think, the first film to open on both East and West Coast at the same time. And people were aligned around the block to see it by word of mouth and radio alone. That was it. And when people saw it, most people had never seen special effects in a movie before. And what I remember reading is it was the second or third movie most people had seen in their lives.
Really?
Yeah, because movies were
so rare.
Silent up to 1927. Yeah. Well, then not hardly any towns had a theater. You had to drive 50 to 100 miles away to find a town that had a theater. And movies were silent until 1927. So think about that. King Kong was made with all of its advances in 1933. With no technology.
I know.
None whatsoever. And so what they said that when people saw the original King Kong, just like when they saw the original Gojira, Godzilla, that they were stunned. I mean, they thought, well, let's go and see the areas of the city that they tore apart because they couldn't believe that what they were seeing wasn't real. That's the truth. When King Kong was that, they said, let's go to New York and see all the damage before they clean it up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there wasn't any damage. It was all miniature. And their brains could not hold the idea that was miniature. They couldn't do it. Nowadays, we're used to it. We're completely used to that. Oh, Sarazawa's place looks like a gothic dungeon.
Well, this feels very much when we deal with Sarazawa like a Hammer horror character.
Yes. Now, see, those bricks are actually painted on the wall. Do you notice that?
Yeah, I can tell.
But yet they couldn't tell in the 50s. They couldn't. It wouldn't have entered someone's mind that those aren't brick walls.
On first viewing you can't tell because you're too involved with the characters.
But nowadays it's all high def and it's been run through so many filters and computers that. I don't know. Like I said, are we losing... That was the point I was getting at. Are we losing the fantasy element? Because what's impressive nowadays? We're not sure what's impressive anymore. How many X-Men movies can they make where someone floats in the sky Christ-like while all kinds of objects are floating around them and they're going, we can't defeat this menace? It's like, it's been done too many times.
Well, it's like when Christopher Reeves was Superman. The big thing was, you'll believe a man can fly. And by God, you do.
That was stunning.
Believe that is Superman. Even today, I've shown that movie to a person... on our floor in college, we had somebody from Japan who wanted to see American movies one day, and one of the movies that I picked was, I said we have to show her Superman,
the 78 Superman,
and she didn't know who Superman was. And I said Superman is the essential immigrant story.
Yeah,
and she goes, "Oh, okay." When I told her that, she instantly knew what it was. Mm-hmm. But when the effects were going, she was like, "This is so good."
Yeah, yeah. I know. I that was absolutely amazing. In fact, one of the best flying shots in that original Superman with Christopher Reeve is when he comes down through the trees with the cat, to get the cat out of the tree, and just lands on one leg so gracefully. I mean, it's done perfectly. And you're just looking for the wires and cables and can't find them.
I know. That's what's funny about this scene? If you put Brother Louie song over this, it's a completely different scene.
What?
Lua, isn't it? It is the beginning of a completely different scene.
What made you think of that?
Look at it. They're going down the stairs.
Louie. Yeah, but what made you think of that?
Isn't it though?
You've had too much soda. Too many Pop-Tarts. That's it. Cut him off.
So look at the old TV in his lab.
Oh, no, I love that study. Yeah, the old, what is it, an old Philco Admiral? Or that's what we'd call it. But.
Yeah. So she's about to see the oxygen destroyer. And for those of you, once again, who have never seen the movie, again, I don't know why you're listening to this if you haven't watched this before, but the oxygen destroyer is the Deus Ex Machina weapon that's going to knock out Godzilla.
Yeah, except that he doesn't pull it out in the third act, where there's a foreshadowing right now. Mm-hmm. He's got a big, excuse me, I'm swallowing. He's got a big fish tank, big aquarium here, and we're seeing close-ups of the fish, which, of course, are getting us ready for close-ups of the big lizard. It's giving you an idea, giving you a comparison. He's got the rubber gloves on that they all had in the 60s. And here we go. He's going to put his capsule, which destroys oxygen and water.
That's true.
Which, of course, if it does that, it destroys all the oxygen molecules completely. That would be in your blood, in your flesh. And so we're about to see that. Now, Emiko, what's her name? Emiko is now looking at the... And we're spared. All you see is a churning of water. But the look of terror on her face, and now she's covered her face with her hands, tells us everything we need to know. Sarazawa, of course, is sweating again, just like Steve Martin, Raymond Burr.
But see, Sarazawa knows what he's made.
Oh, yeah.
Because Sarazawa knows the power of this, because he's seen the power of the atomic bomb.
Yes.
And that's why he's just now sworn Emiko to secrecy.
Yes. And now they're walking back up the Louie steps.
So, and remember, she's still in love with Ogata.
That's right. Oh, we haven't talked too much about that.
Yeah, once again, this is where that love triangle is going to start to become very important. So, Emiko, being in love with Ogata, also has to marry Dr. Sarazawa because that's what her dad has kind of figured out for her. And I think a lot of young women in Japan at this time period would probably have been able to sympathize with her character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and identify with that. And back then, think about society, not just Japan, but everywhere. Back then, a young girl in 1954 or something like that would meet one or two men in her life and marry one of them, and that was it. It isn't anything like today where you go on 30 dates and have 5 relationships before you decide that you might marry someone, so you can divorce them in 2 years. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's how casually we look at, back then it was when you found somebody, you were, that was the person you were with. It was like the small town I grew up in. Whoever you went to your senior prom with, by September you were supposed
you were married.
Yeah, you were married, or you have announced your engagement.
Yeah.
And then you get a house 1 mile or less from her mother, so that her mother could watch your kid, and she can go to go to her mom's house to do the laundry and hang out with her mom all day.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That there you go. That was your life, and then you worked 30 years in the coal mine and died young.
Yeah, that's how it was where I'm from too.
That's exactly, yeah. Yeah, that was it.
When I was first exposed to these movies, it was on a block on TNT called Monster Vision. And for those of you too young to know what Monster Vision was, you have missed out. You have lived a deprived life.
Yes, that's the truth.
So you should go look up Monster Vision now. But I would have to go walk across town because my house didn't have TNT. And I would have to stay up at my grandparents' house until like 10 o'clock at night when they started playing these old movies.
And remember the intro to Monster Vision with the electric
It's
power.
Monster Vision!
Oh gosh! If your imagination was already filled before the movie had even started, you were already going, "Oh man, my anticipation is incredible! I'm already picturing everything I'm going to see, and yet I have no idea what I'm going to see."
I know it was so cool.
It was and that's again the sense of fantasy that a lot of young people today have been deprived of. There's not, like I said, there's nothing impressive anymore. They're just used to here's the latest thing, and they're entertained for the 2.5 hours or whatever it is, and then it hasn't built a memory. And these movies were creating memories for us. Well, look at that. Right now, Godzilla's coming out of the scene with a painted backdrop that is so magnificent.
I always forget if that's a painting or not, but it's beautiful.
It's a big painting that's actually used in several of these movies. I've gotten to where I recognize it.
Imagine being Haruo Nakajima in that Godzilla suit in the big tank.
Yeah, he's in a big tank of water moving around. It's just like a nightmare where you can't move your arms and legs because he's in a 200-pound latex and rubber suit.
Everything is so black in this movie, and it is so choked at this moment because there's so much smoke and fog.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just a beautiful, beautiful shot. Awesomely directed.
Very gothic in appearance, and it gives the idea of a doom, a whole sense of doom.
There's no dialogue either. It's like
just panic.
It's like if National Geographic was there. It's like found footage.
Well, of course, it's because of Honda's background in wanting to be a what were you saying?
Documentary
filmmaker, and of course he gives it a sense of documentary realism that, quite frankly, is missing from the rest of the series. But they wanted to go in another direction anyway. Times were changing. It was like, all right, we're in full color. Batman was a big hit, so things have to be more satirical and all that. What do we do now to make sure that our audience is pleased? And then 59 years later, there's Godzilla's first full body shot attacking the city. Look how huge he is. That's incredibly big.
Birthday Boy is on screen for the first time.
And here comes, of course, the train. Well, that's a great shot. A train at night.
Yep.
Headed right towards Godzilla. They don't know that yet, though.
No, they don't.
And of course, they never do. They always show the two guys in the front. Look at that.
Because
Look at that.
It's so funny for us to think that you mean nobody in the city knows. Well, remember, this isn't the age of social media.
Yeah.
Nobody would know.
Look how big those feet are. And every step has destruction. There are pieces flying from every footstep if you watch that. And look how wet he looks and reptilian he looks. And he's moving so slowly. And, when the monsters move slowly, they're 10 times more powerful looking.
And scary, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Jason in Friday the 13th.
He moves
Jason
slowly.
Never runs.
No.
Jason walks.
Neither does Boris Karloff's The Mummy. Moves at the slowest snail's pace, and he's 1 inch away from the heroine at all times.
If you go back...
Step scrape, and he can still catch her.
And we're seeing one of the best scenes in the movie where Godzilla's caught in the high-tension wires.
Yeah, and people are getting out of the wrecked train. Oh, and there's the train in his mouth.
Yeah.
And he drops it. You see it hit.
I talked to somebody from my hometown, real tiny town like his, and she said that when this movie came out, they showed it at her high school on the screen in her high school, and this is the scene that she still remembers. Nothing else from the movie, but that scene where he's caught in the high tension wires.
It has the effect of a child's nightmare.
Yeah.
And I remember having bad dreams as a kid that I still remember, and this actually has the atmosphere of those nightmares. It really does. Where you're feeling that there's an awesome titanic terror that no one can protect you from, and you're a minute away from it getting you.
Exactly.
And that's, of course, like the beginning of Monster Vision and some of the other ones. They gave you that feeling too. What was it? The one in the TV show in Chicago. It was a Saturday Night Horror that had a Boris Karloff coming through a door as Frankenstein and slamming the door shut, and he would look around and it cut right on the frame when he looks towards where the viewer would be.
Yeah.
And it would always give kids the idea that he was coming for them.
Well, it was like Bela Lugosi as Dracula. And in that scene in Dracula, when Bela is standing there and the eyes are glowing, and he's staring right at you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, breaking the fourth wall at the same time. It's integral to the movie.
I know. It's so good. That's something else you're missing out on if you don't watch black and white movies.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the intensity and the fact that black and white gives the otherworldly effect. That's stock footage, but boy, it's integrated. Look how well it's integrated into the film.
I didn't even think that was stock footage.
Yeah, that is, yeah. And yet, see, it's integrated perfectly in there. Now we know that we're at the war headquarters and everything without any explanation other than that.
I love the fact that they're thinking about dropping depth charges on Godzilla.
Yeah, and a barbed wire fence is going to stop him, but it's going to have 50,000. What kills me is they try the electricity trick on him in several of these movies, and it has the exact non-effect.
I know.
It doesn't do much. And they always meet him at the coast with the army, and he wipes out the army within about 3 minutes.
It's always funny that Godzilla never shows up where the army isn't.
Yeah,
the army's always there.
Well,
they
track his movements, but they don't ever bomb him before he gets on the land.
I know, right?
They bomb him when he gets on land, so it can cause twice. Well, you know why? It looks good. You have to make a good film.
I thought you were going to say it's because of the Japanese sense of honor. You have to be honorable with your opponent.
Well, that's a good point. I wouldn't have thought of that.
It's dishonorable to attack Godzilla.
Yeah, don't attack him when he's in water. Yeah, he's at rest at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is so good at seeing the fleeing civilians.
They always do that well, but you can always find one person look at the camera, and I just did.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always one, and there's more than one, but there's always one that looks at the camera, and there's always someone running and smiling.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
Every one of these. We've stop framed it, like when I thought, well, here's one that doesn't. We've stop framed and found them in every one.
Well, yeah, because Honda didn't think that nerds like us would sit here and watch them that much.
No,
he thought this was just a one-shot.
They didn't think these movies would ever be on television.
Yeah.
Either. They would just play to repertoire theaters and over and over. Not repertoire, old movie theaters over and over again.
So we're missing out another wonderful Ifukube score, which is the military march. And it's so good.
You can hum it.
Da 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 da. See, I know them all by heart.
Oh, yeah.
Which is so good.
We should have kazoos and do it on.
It's so good that in Shin Godzilla they replayed it. Remember when you watched it when they were attacking him with the military? It was the exact same Ifukube score.
Yeah. Well, in the Brandon Routh version of Superman, the one and only time he played Superman, they used the original.
Richard Donner.
Yeah, the original score.
Jerry Goldsmith.
Yeah, they used the Jerry Goldsmith.
No, John Williams.
Oh, it is John Williams. Yes, dun 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 dun. You know.
Dun dun dun. Dun, dun, dun,
yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, dun, 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 dun. And it was to perfect effect. It's just like, you wouldn't have Indiana Jones without his theme song. So why on earth would you have to redo Superman's theme song? Well, I liked his theme song in the old '60s animated TV series. That dun da da dun da da dun da da. That was. I still think of that as Superman. Up, up and away. Now, thank God he doesn't say that anymore. But I want to go up, I want to go high, and I want to go fast. No, thank God he doesn't say up, up, and away anymore.
So we're seeing them prepare for Godzilla's second attack.
Orson Welles style here. They're showing a radio, and
if
we were hearing it now, you would be hearing the radio announcement. And of course, they have the searchlights in the sky. Very much War of the Worlds. Very much the threat of
it's like
an alien threat.
Well, if you're watching this in the 50s, you're thinking air raid. Because you were a survivor. If you were in Japan,
from the 40s.
You were a survivor of the American air raids.
Yeah, holdover from the 40s, right.
Oh, she is so beautiful, isn't she?
Yeah, she's cute. She goes, oh, look at this matte painting, Father.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, look, he took his shoes off to walk inside because you don't have your shoes on in the house.
Oh, man, that's right.
Yeah. Slip on and slip off shoes very quickly. Get that jacket off and let's kneel for our rice.
Yeah, exactly. That way you look like everybody else in the picture. All the other men in the picture.
Yeah.
That aren't in uniforms. Every man in the movie that's not in an army uniform.
Boy, that guy has a lot of weight on his shoulders. All I can think about is killing Godzilla. And then he says, but why can't they try to study him from a radiobiological perspective? It's a unique opportunity. Well, yeah, and see, as a kid, I was like that. I said, why do they try to kill the monster? They go, look, something incredible. Let's destroy it.
Well, that's just like, if tomorrow the president came on and said the biological atoms on Mars are coming after us. They're coming after us. They want our jobs and they want your women.
They want our jobs and our women.
And you know what? We would be throwing nukes and Moab bombs at Mars the day after. I promise you we would.
I know that's the truth. I know that because we're such limited beings.
And that's the point, is that, why the hell would you bother throwing bombs? There were soldiers shooting at guns at Godzilla.
I know.
What, do they think one of them's going to get a lucky shot off?
In Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, a cop has a hand pistol and he's shooting the dinosaur.
Yeah.
Unless it hit it in the eye
Right.
and really, really hit it right in the eye, you're not going to do anything to that.
Oh, I know.
I mean, elephant guns won't stop
It's like
that.
it's like a pinprick.
It's
to
like a
him.
mosquito bite.
Yeah.
I mean, no more effect of that. If he even felt it.
Oh, yeah. The difference, of course, is that Godzilla being radioactive, if he's just walked through a part of Tokyo, everybody within a certain, 20-mile radius is going to have insane amounts of radiation poisoning.
They'll be passing out in the street within half an hour.
Yeah.
Barbed wire fence is about to be charged with 50,000 volts of electricity.
It's interesting that they have those parakeets there. Do you think that's for radioactivity?
It is, because they use them in Rodan, too. They take them down into the caves in Rodan.
Well, they use them when they're in mines for gas.
Yeah, poison gas. Yeah, because the bird dies, then you know that you're in an unsafe areas. I almost said unsafe waters.
Yeah.
Because you know why? We were looking at the searchlights over the ocean.
That's
They're hoping to see Godzilla rise out of the ocean.
It's so beautiful.
It's incredible. Now, those are miniature tanks, but look how well done they are.
It looks real. It looks like stock footage
It
from
really
War
does.
Japan.
And that one, now look, going in front of that miniature house, and you'd never know that's miniature. You really cannot tell.
It has a real War of the Worlds vibe.
Yes, it does. Now, here's Godzilla rising from the ocean. They do such a good job with that. Now, in the later movies of the series, the water boils and boils before a creature rises.
Yeah.
In this one, the water is fairly calm, and he just breaks the calm by simply rising up out of it. So it gives it an oily, slick feel.
And I love how nobody's shooting at him yet. They're just getting ready. You have to be there, and the tension builds, and you have to watch the guns go up inch by inch.
Yeah, a little sexual reference there. It's like it's going higher and higher. Now Godzilla is ankle deep in water and very impressive looking.
How big do you think he is?
As 200 to 300 feet in this one, isn't that correct?
I think so.
Yeah. But look how large that is against those buildings.
Yeah.
That strikes me as more than that, but really no. Think about the size of the windows. No, that's about right.
Think about the size of the highest 2 or 3 story buildings at the time.
His girth and his leg muscles, and look at his head looks. Now he's hitting the.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
He's hitting the electrified fence, and it's not stopping him in the slightest bit. He's pausing, but it's not stopping him.
He's like the Energizer Bunny. He's just going and going and going.
And look, when he wrecks the tower, and they have to rebuild that tower if the take isn't right. Yeah. Now that's the same tower he just wrecked from another angle.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it is. That's how they did that.
I didn't know that.
They had to minimize. Yeah, they had to minimize.
Oh, wow. I thought he was just totally fucking up different miniatures.
No. A lot of that is, there's about 4 of them. Now, see, this is before it happened again from another angle. But if you do it
awesome.
you do it cleverly enough, you can make it work very well. Had I not read that, I wouldn't have caught it.
And we're seeing Godzilla's atomic breath for the first time.
And his eyes look very wicked. And now look at it melt. You can actually see the cables melt. Look
at how they did that?
It's wax, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wax under the studio lights.
Yeah, and they just hit the lights hard because you can see the glow. Yeah. It perfectly works.
I mean, what we're talking about is called the magic of filmmaking. And the reason that this isn't here anymore in Hollywood or in studios is because you can go click, 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 CGI, and that's how it's done. But here, it's actual tricks. It's actual model making.
Yeah.
Somebody actually put those buildings together, and now they're just lighting them on fire.
Yeah, and someone has to watch their handiwork go up in smoke. But the thing is, it's captured on film forever. The men who put that together are probably gone now.
Yeah.
And their grandkids are probably our age or older, and yet this film exists, and someone watching it for the first time, it's brand new.
And it still is powerful, I think.
Very.
If you show
Look
this
at
to
that.
somebody who's never seen Godzilla before.
Now, Godzilla right now is illuminated only by the fire created by his destruction. There's no other light on him.
And his spines are glowing.
Yeah, that was a great idea to have the power come from his spine out through his mouth. And look, they burned those. Now, see, that's just like the atomic blast right there. So
he just roasted them.
Yeah.
Melted them.
And he's not even aware of the people that much. He's just looking at his surroundings and attacking
Yeah.
what's unfamiliar to him. Now watch, some stop motion will be in here in a minute. When his tail comes in and hits the fire truck.
fire truck, yeah.
Now that's a rod puppet. That's a different head than we saw briefly.
If you look close enough, you can see the thing inside the skin.
Oh, I didn't. I did see the tube that brings his atomic breath. I saw that moving in his throat. Here we go. Now watch. His tail will hit with stop motion and hit one of these fire trucks in a minute, and the whole thing goes over on its side in frame by frame stop motion. Which Subaraya, is that? Am I saying it right? Subaraya really wanted to use stop motion, and he uses a little bit of it in King Kong versus Godzilla, but it's ineffective. They didn't quite get it right.
It's so cool to see him through the barbed wire.
Yeah, and that's superimposed, I believe.
The story was that when Subaraya told, here we go.
Yeah. Here's where the tail comes in. Right there.
Yeah.
I thought the tail hit him. No, I guess not.
No, it's the chaos that made him wreck.
I thought the tail hit in stop motion. Oh, well.
The story is that when they were planning this movie, Subaraya had lots of talks with Tanaka, Tomoyuki Tanaka, the producer of this, and he said, I can do it all in stop-mo. And he said, yeah, but it would take you 2 years and like $2 million.
To do the crumbling buildings in stop-mo. Oh, because Ray Harryhausen hated to do the crumbling. But there was sometimes no way around it. It's like, well, I'll have to do that, And he, of course, soldiered right on and did it. But wow. To have an aerial brace for every brick, every piece of glass, everything. One thing I've always said about the movies, that's awesome. That was completely real.
This is the Raymond Burr speech that I always remember. It's
the force of nature speech.
It's now only a row of tanks stand between me and Godzilla, and not even tanks can stop the monster.
Yeah.
Tokyo has no hope.
Tokyo has no hope. I can just hear his voice.
Yeah.
And he's going to wipe sweat. Yeah, I wonder if the script said, now wipe sweat.
Yeah. No, I'm sure
remove glasses, look serious.
He was just doing that himself.
That's what they tell newsmen all the time. And on this line, remove your glasses and look serious.
Oh, wow. Look at all that barbed wire.
Yeah. I don't know who they think that's protecting, though.
Yeah.
Like, look at that. The ray just hit, and you think that barbed wire was a whole lot of help there?
Well, I mean,
now it's burning under the barbed wire.
Imagine how horrified they were when they realized, oh, shit, Godzilla can breathe radiation.
Yeah. Yeah, and projected just like a mythological dragon.
Yeah.
Right from the mouth. Not from the eyes. And see, it could have been the eyes or come from his claws, and it comes from his mouth like a dragon. Because, the traditionalist view of fantasy.
I would say that right now, the state the world is in, socially, politically, is very similar to how the social, political statement of the world was when this movie came out.
Yeah, because we've moved backwards.
So it's more relevant now.
As relevant now. I'd say as relevant now because we've always been, since this happened, scared of atomic bombs. It hasn't changed. That relevancy has always absolutely maintained. Socially and all that stuff, it's almost as if civil rights and all that movement never happened. We are just absolutely clumsily stepping right back into that old sticky pot again.
Oh, I know. It's amazing to see how quickly people forget. We're like, the social civil rights stuff. No, that didn't happen.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
It's revisionist history.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I saw the people in the windows looking up.
I know. It's so good.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't get to the shelters in time.
Yeah, so they just have to scream and hope they're built. Look at that! The entire city line is on fire, and his silhouette's in the background, silhouetted by the flames of his own destruction. You're right.
No.
You're right. I can see the mechanism shooting the ray.
Fire.
Yeah. That's all right though. I like knowing how they're done. I mean, I like figuring out how they're done.
Well, yeah, you and I are I'm a model maker, you're an artist, so we gel out on this.
And I've made miniatures for movies and things, so yeah. I just finished doing the stop motion effects for a film called Platypossum, and it was a ton of work. A ton of work.
Tell them about the nightmare you had where you left your desk in the middle of your stop motion and you thought you forgot about where the tail was.
That happened several times. Which specific one do you mean? I'll tell you what happened worse is I had to use the bathroom and we stopped it and I came back and a kitten was on the miniature set right by the monster and we didn't know how much it had moved it. And the kitten was up walking around and moving all the things, we had plants and things that we had to be careful of, and the kitten had walked right through the whole thing and it's like, oh my God. So we turned on the camera and filmed a little bit of it because we knew we'd have to start over again. Luckily there were salvageable shots in that cut.
Okay.
We did have to start over again.
I want you to watch this.
Oh yeah, she thinks the mother and two children. They think they're going to die. Goes, we'll be joining your father in just a moment. In another minute, we'll be with your daddy because they think they're going to die.
And I want you to think of the implication there. The implication that their dad died either during the war or in the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
True, or minutes before. Maybe Godzilla's already killed him.
Yeah, maybe he
might
was
have
in
been
the defense
military.
forces.
Yeah, he might have been.
You know, I always thought that the reason that the Japanese self-defense forces were such shit in these movies was that because of the limitations that we put on them afterwards because they couldn't arm themselves.
Yeah.
And so they had inferior weapons.
You know what? Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that. That would never cross my mind.
Really?
Oh, look at that, destroying the clock. There was a picture in Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine of him with one hand on right when he was crunching that clock, and you only saw it beginning to break, and that filled my because I hadn't seen this film then, and that just filled my 9-year-old imagination with, oh my god! Now look at that. How do they make that whole city on fire like that? You know, I know it's 2 pieces of film, but it's so correctly done.
It's beautiful,
and the lighting is correct.
The streets are deserted.
Yeah.
And all that's left are these insane radio people, the radio men.
Very War of the Worlds again, because
Yeah.
again, there's only a few things to draw from. The fear of the bomb dropped, and then War of the Worlds, and all. There's only a few things that have ever scared us globally, and so they have to call upon that stuff because that's the shared experience that humanity had at this time. Now we're so used to these fantasy films, you don't have to call upon all that stuff anymore, which is a shame actually.
Yeah.
Because again, there's no cultural significance in it. I mean, there is, but not nearly to the level this has.
Earlier, when you were talking about Godzilla moving slow, I was thinking, you know, what other famous villain moves slow is the Borg.
Oh, yes,
in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Not only do the Borg drones move slow.
Dang it, you just missed the stop motion of the tail.
Of the tail whacking in the building.
Was, yeah.
I knew which one it was. I didn't even see it, but I've seen it so many times. Not only do the drones move slow and they just grab you, but their ships do.
Yeah, that's right.
Their ships move really slow.
It's just methodically because they know that they're just simply a force, and after a while they'll get you.
Yeah, your warp ship
like the Mummy from Boris Karloff's The Mummy. He just walks with a step and a scrape and gets every victim.
That's why those villains, that is one of the best things to do with a villain is just have him stand up and walk real slow.
Yeah,
like Jason.
Michael Myers.
Yeah.
He doesn't run. He does move at a fast clip at certain times. What kills me about Michael Myers is big, hulking, powerful guy can silently enter any house he wants.
He goes into stealth mode.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park Lost World. He's wandering through L.A. and he's on stealth mode.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Nobody's seeing this T-Rex. Like, really?
There's a Godzilla reference in that, though. You know that, right?
Well, that's because...
that destruction right there has been used in several of the black and white Honda films.
Oh, yeah.
That's in Varan the Unbelievable
footage.
Right away, yeah.
Now, is that the Diet Building?
There it is. That
yeah,
one.
That's the
diamond-shaped building right there. That's it.
That's their Congress.
Now, look how little it is there and how big it is in King Kong versus Godzilla.
Well, you got to think that movie was, 15 years later?
Let's see, 63 from 53, 10 years.
Maybe it had grown?
No, I think that Godzilla either got smaller or they just changed the scale.
Yeah.
Well, and they're not thinking that you're going to watch this one and watch the other one immediately.
Yeah.
And back then, these movies weren't shown on television. They weren't. It was a long time before cinema was actually shown on television because it had the wrong ratio for a TV screen. Then they found out how we could modify it, but they didn't modify all of them. Sometimes it was like very poorly presented. Stanley Kubrick movies look horrible on TV until they learned how to modify the ratio. Because a theater screen, when you go to the movies, is far wider than a TV screen. TV screen was almost square. So things shot with a television camera wouldn't have worked in a theater and vice versa.
I've got a confession to make. I like the Stanley Kubrick version of The Shining better than the Stephen King version.
Oh, yeah. I'll always like the Kubrick films better. And I'm not a major fan of The Shining as much as I am of his other films, but of the two versions you just mentioned, yes, I agree. Same thing. I don't know. Kubrick was an impressive filmmaker even before he got all the public acclaim. When I was in high school, I had only seen... wasn't Clockwork Orange. I didn't see that till college because it was banned everywhere.
Really?
It was rated X, yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I had seen The Killing, the one where The Killing of a Book. No, what is the one where the guy's the bookie and he's got the gun in his car? I'd seen that one. I'd seen Paths of Glory, and of course, Paths of Glory. I don't really care for war films, but that movie as a film is incredible. And I thought, boy, with anything else, because I was even as a young guy, I was noting who directed these movies because I want to see more movies that are like this by this guy. And so I got, look at, he turns over that whole elevated bridge. Oh my God.
He's just like, fuck it.
And so anyway, I, when suddenly it was like, hey, this Kubrick guy's making a bunch of films. Then he did 2001: A Space Odyssey that I saw in high school. My dad hated that movie with a passion. Every 5 seconds he was turning and looking at me, going, "Now what the hell's going on?" And I said, Dad, I said, in cinema, real true cinema, they don't want to have to spoon feed you everything. You're supposed to think about it and get it. You're supposed to integrate it into yourself and imagine what's going on. And my dad's famous quote was, "When I plop down my $2, last thing I want to do about a movie is fucking have to think about the damn thing." He said that. That's a quote. So my brother.
That is American as can be.
Any time we would watch a movie, my brother and I watch a movie, and something mysterious would happen, we would look at each other and go, "I don't want to have to think about the damn thing." The other thing Dad used to say when a movie didn't make sense, like Planet of the Apes or whatever, when it didn't make sense, he'd go, "I guess we're not supposed to understand it," or he'd go, "I guess we're not supposed to get it." So something would happen, and my friends and I would all go, "Guess we're not supposed to get it."
I'm gonna do that next time.
Oh yeah. Oh, my friends and I still do it. When we get together and watch a movie, as soon as something bizarre happens, we go, "Oh, guess we're not supposed to get it," even though we know better. It's just it became a classic joke. See, that's filmed in real time.
Oh, the stop motion.
Well, no, it's not stop motion. That's suit motion. But
Yeah.
see, that's filmed in real time. And see
I'm
how.
talking about the model planes.
Oh yeah, but see how he doesn't look large there. When they film it in slow motion, he looks much larger. But I know that they want it to look like he's got fast reflexes and all. They want it to look that way.
And I love that the crowd is now cheering the Jets.
Yeah.
They're cheering because they think they've got him.
Well, they drove him back into the water. Of course, they don't realize that's where he lives. Of course, he wants to go back to the water. I don't think he's scared by those planes at all. I don't think
he even notices them.
Oh, he's slapping at them.
Well, yeah, but like they're like bees.
Yeah, it's just yeah. A good joke I heard, that old saying, it said, "Dance like nobody's watching." And then they add to that, yeah, so she danced like nobody was watching and it looked like bees were attacking her.
Yeah, she danced like Elaine Dennis.
Yeah, oh yeah.
With the little kids.
And the leg twisted and kicked out.
Yeah.
And she's dancing to a Foghat song, isn't she?
Yeah. No, she's dancing to what is it?
Oh, is it? I thought it was Is it? I thought it was a Foghat song.
Yeah.
It's been, oh God, what, 20 years since I've seen it. Everybody remembers the episode of Elaine dancing.
So here we're seeing where the American movie starts, and I think it does it so much better here. Because in the American movie, it starts off seeing that it flattened Tokyo. Mm-hmm. So you know what's coming. And this one, you don't even know what the hell. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you don't know.
And we're seeing,
Well, American movies at this era were based on American television. And you start off the first 5 minutes with a bang, and you slowly go back and build the audience's trust. And all the European and other parts of the world, when they make films, they don't tell it like that. Again, the Godard quote, it doesn't have to be beginning, middle, and end in that order at all.
We're going to hear here in the next couple of minutes one of the most haunting Ifukube songs, which is the nation's prayer for salvation.
I hope you can hum it.
I can't. I can't hum it, but I know it because it's so haunting and it's so depressing.
I can drum the national anthem.
Oh man, this is such a sad scene.
Perform the national anthem on drums. Yeah.
I probably can. I probably could if I had a gun to my head.
Yeah, I know that. This looks just like every, the really authentic war films. Like when I say that, I mean the documentaries of war film we've seen of the destruction and the crying children, homeless children who cannot find their parents and they don't know what's going on. They do not understand why their little world of happiness has been absolutely destroyed. Because kids have fears like that anyway. They worry, like, if I go outside and get a cut on my hand, will my hand fall off? Children worry about those things.
They understand how helpless they are, but they don't know to what extent.
Yeah, and they don't know why things happen either. Mm-hmm. Kids will ask you, why do things happen all the time? Animals look at you that way too, like, why did that happen? And you can tell, they're looking at you like, can you explain this?
You can tell there's an intelligence there, but it's something that can't communicate with you.
Right, yeah. Well, actually, just because we don't understand them doesn't mean they don't communicate. I think they do.
Yeah. But dogs are the same way.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah, they really, truly are. Dogs are a barometer. If you wonder if somebody's unsafe in your house, look how the animal acts around them.
I'll never forget what happened the first time I brought Anna home to meet my family. My dog, Abby, who I had raised since she was a puppy, she was a golden Labrador retriever. She'd come barreling through the house barking on hardwood floors so you could hear her, right? Yeah. So she comes to the front living room, gets to the door, me and Anna are sitting there, and she puts on all fours and slides to a halt. She stops right between us, looks up at me, looks up at Anna, looks up at me, looks up at Anna, gets up and walks away.
Oh, I thought you were going to say just went to her throat and tore her throat.
No,
out.
no, no.
That's right, you tore her throat out.
Her tail wasn't wagging. It just went
Oh.
right between her legs, got up and walked away.
Was that your sign to break up with Anna?
No, I try. No, but in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, you were trying to tell me, weren't you?
Yeah, the dog was jealous. That was competition.
Yeah, it's like she's
There's
like,
the oxygen destroyer.
Oh, yeah,
strip the fish to their bones. So now we're seeing what we didn't see in the previous scene. So the fish were stripped to their bones, and there's nothing but bubbling or boiling water. It's boiling water. But it's not heat. We have to understand that the weapon is not heat-based.
And it's Emiko's decision now whether or not she should tell Ogata. Because Ogata's going to go tell the world. And if she tells Ogata, she betrays her father and she betrays Serizawa.
That's right.
So it's all based on her. She has now become the main character, which goes back to what I said in my English lit classes, that this is a feminist movie and it is pro-feminist.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, I believe that.
Not maybe feminist by today's standards, but when you look at the time period it was made in, look at how women were portrayed in American monster movies.
Right, yeah. And that's funny because right after the war, when they were all going to work in their husband and boyfriend's jobs, well, those guys were off fighting the war.
Yeah.
When the guys came back, the women were like, okay, now get back to your little subservient role.
Yeah.
Please do that now. And of course, women weren't ready to do that. And they were raising daughters. They didn't know when the war was going to end. They were raising daughters to, you're going to have to learn how to do this. You have to use tools. You have to be smart. You're going to have to do all these things. And then they're like, oh, we decided we don't like it that way. We're going to go back to the other way. And of course, it's never gone back to the other way.
No, it hasn't.
And it shouldn't. It shouldn't. He says, I didn't eat for 2 or 3 days. Oh, he can't eat the fish now. He just destroyed them with his oxygen destroyer.
Well, he's supposed to be like Dr. Oppenheimer.
Yes.
That's who Serizawa is. He's Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer and a little bit of von Braun as well. Because he was we still think of him now in history as the guy who invented the space race almost, because he came up with airborne weapons and all that stuff for Germany. Emiko, I perform my work strictly as a research scientist. But yet he's so passionate about it.
I know. I mean, you got to wonder why you built the damn thing if you didn't want anybody to discover it.
And you're right. It's going to be used for a horrible purpose. He goes, yes, used as a weapon to be as powerful as a nuclear bomb. Of course, that's the theme of this.
Yeah, and he's scared that other nations will find out, and it will become an oxygen destroyer race instead of a atomic bomb race.
That's right. Yeah, he can find a use for the oxygen destroyer that will benefit society, and there's no way.
What purpose could it serve, Dr. Serizawa?
Because in the 30s and 20s, 30s, and 40s, they even wanted Einstein to get up and lie and say that nuclear power is going to be for the benefit of everybody, and it wasn't. It's to be who's going to be the dominant force. That's all it was.
Even nuclear power sources to this day are still detrimental. They're not useful.
They've tried to make them useful, but they're not safe.
Yeah,
we're better off without them. Think about this, though. In primitive days, if people saw lightning, they said, we're going to somehow capture lightning and use it in our homes to have illumination. They would have thought you're nuts.
Or because they thought God was pissed at us.
Oh, yeah, they thought that was an emanation from God. And no, it's just a natural phenomenon But, where was I going with this? But then the idea that nuclear power, they're talking about atoms that nobody can see, and people had to be convinced that they existed.
Yeah.
And if you split one of these things, you can't even see. It's so small, you can't even tell it's enough to destroy a city. And they're going, you're kidding me. And of course, look what happens. Of course it does. So let me ask this. What horrifying, terrifying vistas of reality do we not know about?
Lots. Especially when
Lovecraft tells us that.
Especially if you listen to Dr. Michio Kaku and other physicists who talked about other dimensions.
Yeah, he scares me to death.
God, I know. They thought that they could be all around us, and we're too stupid and limited to notice it.
That's right. We only have 5 senses.
Yeah.
So maybe that's for the best, because it would be like this. We would take what we find and decimate our neighbor.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? I'm going to be more powerful than the guy 2 streets down from me and blow him up.
Yeah, exactly.
Burn him up, put him in a little, put him in something, whatever.
Yeah.
You would. Some days you're in the mood going, that's it. If I had a gun, I'd shoot somebody. Whether you would or not, it's just if it were possible. And today, people's morals are just down the drain. I mean, 9-year-old kids get a gun and shoot somebody, and they think that's okay.
Yeah.
They do. They haven't been either raised or what I don't know what the problem that makes these symptoms are. But there's no value for life, no value for private space, no value for anything other than what you want in that moment. And that's it. That's the only thing kids value. or most kids. And then when I say kids, it goes all the way up to people in their early 30s now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had neighbors who just simply don't understand that other people have jobs and need to sleep and all that stuff. They just go, get out of my face and quit telling me what to do in my place. And it's like, yeah, but what you're doing in your place is keeping the whole building awake.
Yeah,
and
because
they don't see that.
all they see is what's in front of them. They don't see how their action has an immediate and opposite effect on the people around them.
And what they're going to get for themselves in the next hour.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the future is the next hour. When I was a kid, I thought about the future. What will happen when I'm 30? And nowadays, the future is Friday afternoon. That's it.
I had a friend of mine come down from Chicago before he goes off to Myanmar to teach English with the Peace Corps, and he was hanging out, and he's a little bit younger than me. He's in his 20s. But he wanted me to show him a couple of Star Trek episodes, so I was like, I'll show you some of the better TNG ones, because that's what I got. Mm-hmm. He couldn't sit through one of them. He was always on his phone.
Yeah. I know I have problems with that too. I have people that used to take art lessons from me, and the art lesson would be 35 minutes.
Yeah.
And they were on their phone 2 times in 35 minutes. I said, we can't do this if you're going to be on your phone. We can't do this. And they were actually insulted, and I said it very nicely, And they said, well, I'm paying you for your time. I said, yeah, but we're way behind where we should be because you're on your phone all the time. Could you leave it in the car or turn it off when we're doing this? And no, they would get on there and go, well, okay, I guess we're done. We have 5 to 6 minutes of painting and drawing time, and the rest of the time they're on their phone.
It's interesting you said that, because everybody used to think, well, the better cameras will get, the better access people will have to cameras, the better movies will get. Everybody's got a movie quality camera in their iPad or in their iPhone. But where are all the Steven Spielbergs? Where are all the Ishiro Hondas? Where are all the Ray Harryhausens?
I know.
We don't have them. We have Ruin Johnson and Craig KK. And these idiots are trying to screw up Hollywood.
That's why all my favorite directors are from Europe and Japan.
Yeah.
They all are. I'm not going to say I hate American cinema, because I don't hate it. But I prefer, that's the word I'm going to use, I prefer the others.
I think Americans do TV better.
In a sense, yeah, they do. From what I've seen, we're very limited in how much we see in America as far as European television and Japanese television. We only see a little bit. Like, for instance, I only knew about British television. The only thing I saw for years was the Avengers, Doctor Who, and Monty Python. And that was it. And that at least, that and Hammer horror films, that's not TV, though. It's not television. But now lately on BBC 1 and 2 and all that stuff, you see, they even have reruns from the 50s and 60s.
Oh, yeah.
Fascinating stuff. You'll never live long enough to catch up with all of it, which is a good thing, because there's no boredom.
Well, I have Amazon Prime, and on Amazon Prime, I have a subscription to BritBox, and you have access to every Doctor Who episode that has survived.
Yeah, that survived.
All the way back to the first one.
And now they're going back and repairing the old ones with animation.
And it's so good.
That is.
The older stuff is so good because they put time, care, and quality into them that modern stuff just doesn't have anymore.
And they cared about characterization, which is just out the window nowadays.
Yeah.
Nowadays, your hero and heroine look like they belong on a fashion runway. And not that that's terrible, but that's strictly all. Like an actor like Tom Baker wouldn't be hired today with
Oh,
this
God,
look.
no.
And he's a consummate performer. Absolutely 100% consummate actor. And they wouldn't have hired him today because he doesn't look like a male model.
I'll tell you what my favorite Tom Baker episode is. It's Horror at Fangor.
Oh, yes, that's excellent.
It's so Lovecraftian. It could be a Lovecraft story. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget that my favorite scene is the cliffhanger to the 3rd episode.
When the ship comes in?
No, that's after one of the characters has fallen off the balcony, and the doctor, and it's a close up of Tom's face, so the camera's here, and Tom smacks himself on the face, and you hear Leela go, "Doctor, what's the matter?" And he goes, "Leela, I'm afraid I made a terrible mistake. I believed I was locking the creature outside in the fog." And then he smiles and he says, "But I've locked it in here with us."
That's right. Yeah.
And it is.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And it focuses in on his smile.
He goes, "I've locked it in here with us."
Oh, awesome.
Oh, yeah.
It's stuff like that they miss out on.
Yeah, no kidding. I had to convince my brother's 7 years younger than me, and when we first started watching Doctor Who when I was in high school, it was Tom Baker. And at that time, we knew so little, we thought Tom Baker was the only Doctor Who there was. We didn't know. We didn't have...
You didn't know he changed.
Oh, no, I grew up in a coal mining town, where Dairy Queen was the biggest thing happening.
Yeah.
We had no idea about the regeneration. None of that. We didn't know any of that. It took several episodes before I found out he was an alien.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, my brother at first was like, he just wouldn't, the special effects weren't up to it and all that. And then it didn't take long where he got into it and he goes, He even said to me, now remember, he's 7 years younger than me, and I'm in high school. He goes, the acting in these is a lot better than these kind of shows usually are. And it hit me right then. I thought, secretly inside, I was thinking that too, that the acting and performances are, these guys are treating this material like it's Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And they're giving you a performance no one's phoning it in. It's not like, well, I'm relying on my superstar good looks and my $300 haircut to get me through this, And British actors, no, they don't do that. No, they are sweating their blood and guts for every line.
American actors do that.
Yeah, I know American actors. Talk about uniformity.
Well, we're at the scene now. In case you're wondering, with the nationwide prayer and the really depressing as hell song that they're singing, and it's all
that middle girl's cute.
It's really sad. It's Honda's take on religion because. Honda was very against organized religion. He wasn't against spirituality per se, but he was against organized religion.
Because it's political. It's all politically motivated. Organized religion is. I don't want to say it's a crime because not in every place it is, but it's used. It's used as a tool, and then people believe that the religion causes the mistakes that the use of it, and that's not the truth. When that stuff happens, it's all politically motivated.
But this is a really good... Well, again, we will talk more about that when we eventually get to Mothra. Because that's going to be all over Mothra.
Yeah. Look at those rows of people. They look like the same rows that you see in a giant graveyard.
And they're so sad looking.
But, the headstones in a giant graveyard line up exactly that same way.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And of course, we cut back to Serizawa watching this on his TV, and he's freaking out because he knows he has a decision to make.
Yeah. And he's looking at young people, too, who are praying for hope. And he might have the hope, but he also might have the poison of the world, which is a metaphor, again, for the radioactive.
There are very little characters in modern cinema as good as this Dr. Serizawa.
That's true. And he's with a brevity of scenes and a brevity of lines, too. He only says what needs to be said, and yet his character comes across in spades. Doctor, you are right.
Yeah, exactly. He's agreeing with Ogata, even though, he knows he's not going to get to marry Emiko, but he knows he's going to save the world.
Yeah.
Which is what he wants to do anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, he's convinced that, and I think a lot of scientists are convinced that they know what's right. And some of them are.
Yeah.
You know what kills me is you were Japanese professor you're just mentioning.
Michio Kaku.
Yeah. He's one of the few televised geniuses of our time that we all know about. Back in the days of Oppenheimer and Einstein, and you could go on and name them. Those guys were celebrities. They were well known.
Yeah.
And I used to say, when we find somebody of Einstein's capability now, we snatch him away, keep him locked away, and have him develop a new phone. Mm-hmm. That's what they do. They don't come up with ways to save our planet and our humanity. No, they come up with a new phone. That's what they come up with. Or give us a thinner computer that I can carry in my car. Well, that's what we want.
Well, it's like what Jeff Goldblum says in Jurassic Park. He said, "What you mean you've developed this thing and now you bought it and you're selling it and you're selling it and you're selling it."
What's his famous line? You tried so hard to figure out if you could, you didn't see whether you should or not.
If you should,
yeah. If you should, yeah.
That movie is so good. His character mentions hits on that right there.
Ian Malcolm, Dr. Ian Malcolm. Yeah, he wears only black and gray, and he's like a scientific rock star, just like the guy we were just talking about. I don't know. I'm bad on names today for some reason. I still haven't thought of that actor's name.
You'll see it in the credits.
Yeah, I know, and then I'm going to slap myself in the forehead
because you'll know I've seen it 1 billion times.
I know. Well, it killed me. I was going to say his name earlier, and it went right out of my head. Going
back to the Geiger counter, the old Geiger.
He goes, according to my readings, this is an ocean.
Yeah. I guess they're testing the water for levels of radioactivity.
Get me a diving suit. And 3 tacos. What are you saying?
So, yeah, we've
let's see, this is a little like Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, too. Then the professor had to go down on the diving bell.
Well, the reasons are different.
Oh, of course they are. I'm not making a negative connotation. Yeah. I'm just saying that these movies have things in common because
they do.
Because this is how people were thinking at that time. What would cause this drama to take place? What would, a giant creature attacking? So they do that. What would the scientists do to defend ourselves? So they do that. Excuse me. And you get a lot of repeated motifs because that was not only expected, that was in the psyche of people.
But you see, he's lying to them right now because he's trying to convince them that he can come back up after using it. And when he goes down there, you see him take out that knife and cut out the oxygen line.
Right. Yeah.
Because he doesn't want anybody to have the oxygen destroyer. He's going to kill himself and take the oxygen destroyer with him, by God, which is a metaphor for what America should have done with the atomic bomb.
No kidding. Yeah, no kidding. Oh, no kidding. Yeah, Einstein even said, he goes, I'm afraid. He goes, I'm going to go over there and help. I want to get away from the evil side. He wanted to escape Germany.
Yeah.
Came to America, and it was like, he goes, I'm afraid that everything I came here for, they're going to use as a weapon. Because he said, gentlemen, Einstein's words were, what I'm going to show you could put a lake of ice in a desert, but it depends on how you use it. And of course, what did they use it for? An atomic bomb.
You know, what was funny was in an American history class in in history of the world, Cold War. We had students in that class who were from. We watched Atomic Nation, which has recently unreleased stock footage of atomic testing in Nevada. We had people in that class who were crying watching it because they had never known that we tested atomic bombs in Nevada.
Yeah, where people live.
And I'm like, are you serious? How sheltered were you that you didn't know we tested atomic bombs?
I'm not shocked by that. I'm not shocked by that at all. I run into people who are in their mid-20s that don't know how to use a ruler, a 12-inch ruler. Don't know how to read it. Yeah, people have come to me for art lessons and things, have no clue how to read a ruler.
Huh.
I'm not kidding you at all. I'm not making that up, and it's to where I'm not even shocked anymore. You know, and I've had people hold up a tube of paint that clearly says orange on it, and they ask me what color this is.
Wah, wah, wah.
I'm not making that up. I'm not making that up.
Sadly, that doesn't surprise me.
I just literally, and this all, you start to refer to. I remember one time I was referring to the Sistine Chapel, and someone actually asked me what were the previous 15. Not making that up. Not making that up. And I'm not saying this isn't a 7-year-old kid. This is somebody about 25. You know. Yeah, not kidding you. Not kidding you. No.
When my friend was down here, we were having dinner with a grad student in the English department, and he was saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna set myself up as a white warlord." And his friend and I looked at each other, and he looked at me, and I looked over at my friend, and I said, "You realize you pretty much just described the plot of The Man Who Would Be King." Right? And he looks at me and he goes, "What's that?" And he was an English major, and me and his friend just face palmed. And his friend looks up at him and he says, "Don't let them cut you. If they see you bleed, they know you're not a god."
Oh, that's it. Yeah, they see you bleed, they know you're not a god. Oh, yeah, from Star Trek. Behold a god that bleeds. Yeah, when he was dressed as an Indian.
Yeah. Oh man.
But no, it's gone beyond shocking me. I mean, right now, I just almost come to expect it now from certain people. I mean, when the Godzilla remake 3 years ago, Gareth Edwards, the reboot happened, they were interviewing people, and I was watching this on television. They were interviewing people who had just seen the movie, and they decided to play with some people, and they went up to some college-aged people, men and women, and they asked the same question over and over again. They were referring to this movie that we've been watching. They said in 1954, when the giant lizard did walk up on land and all that stuff, and we were just very lucky to have defeated it. You know, what steps do you think we have in place now to protect ourselves if it happens again? And this young girl looked at him, and tears almost came to her eyes. She goes, "Oh, aren't they all extinct?" Yeah, these are people who are allowed to mate, vote, and drive cars.
I'm not saying that I think there should be an IQ test before you have kids.
But there should be an IQ test. But there should be a test.
There should be an equivalency.
If you have to pass a test to drive a car, you should have to pass a test to have kids. But I don't know. That's too Orwellian, though, isn't it? It is. That's too Orwell. Maybe I don't believe that, or maybe I don't think it should happen. But it's a fun notion.
You know what really sent me through the roof the other day is that I was at the high school and I had my phone and I was trying to listen to a Civil War lecture by Dr. David Blight at the University of Yale because they put all their lectures on YouTube for free. And it was an entire semester, and I couldn't pull it up, and I didn't understand why. And a message popped up that said, "These videos have been flagged as offensive by the server you are using."
Oh, goodness.
Lectures on the Civil War by a critically acclaimed author and lecturer were flagged as offensive.
Well, it's like Orwell again. They're going to hide knowledge. Remember, in 1984, let's censor the past, censor news, and hide knowledge.
And that
all
sent
for
me
your
through
own
the roof.
good.
That sent me through the roof. I was like, you know what?
To.
These idiot kids, no wonder they don't know anything about their own damn history.
And they don't. Well, okay, again, back to a previous art student I had. I was showing some M.C. Escher prints that I used to have and I sold them years ago. But anyway, we were looking at them, and one of them is all of his are fascinating, but one of them has an army tank that's out the window, parked on the street as if it were a car, and a woman is on the telephone. Now, get this now. Modern woman.
Yeah.
Army tank, and despite the surreality of the picture, and she's on the phone, and this young man, about 22 years old, asked me if it was drawn in the Renaissance. I wish I was making this up.
You should have said yes, a time travel.
No, I needed a pillow to catch my jaw when it fell open, so...
I thought you were going to say you were going to...
yeah, I need a pillow to scream into. And then look at him with a big smile and go, that'll be $35. And I tell you, it just goes beyond... Like the thing on Facebook where they say Facebook will be closed February 29th, 30th, and 31st. Those 3 days don't happen in February. You wouldn't believe how many times and how many people I've had to explain that to, that that's a joke. They go, oh no, what are we going to do? And I said, my God, do I really have to explain that to you? And you know what? I had to explain it to them. Yeah. Now, I'm not the world's smartest guy. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't know, and I don't say that I pretend to know. But it just kills me on some of this other stuff. And, like I said, we're not talking about 7-year-old kids who haven't heard of something. We're not. We're talking about people who, can spawn and drive a car. This just absolutely... There, he's about to cut the oxygen line.
Oh, because he's doing the...
Now, they're not underwater there. Those bubbles are added by an optical printer, which optical printers are obsolete these days, but they were developed by Disney, believe it or not. But those bubbles are superimposed upon him. He's actually in a dry area when that thing's filmed. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
That's called an optical printer, where you can print 2 images without using 2 pieces of film. Now, 2 pieces of film are used to get the image, and then the image is just supplanted onto the other one.
So I think he's doing the old samurai thing of harakiri.
Yes. He's taking his own life,
but he's doing it in an honorable cause. Mm-hmm. He's saving the entire world.
He knows it. Look, that character knows it. He goes, Sarazawa.
Yamane is so good.
That's all he had to say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And look at that. The result almost sinks the ship.
Yeah.
It's really good model work, too.
Oh, that's incredible. See, I appreciate model work. When other people go, you can tell it's a model. I said, that's not a flaw. Look, there's water splashed on the lens.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't mind that. They don't mind it.
Like I said, it's like if National Geographic were there. Mm-hmm. If National Geographic were there doing this, that's what it would look like.
Well, that's the rod puppet that we saw earlier at the electric fence.
But it works because he's becoming petrified.
Yeah.
He's dead.
Yeah, his fingers were like that, crunching up together, clawing up together. Now they're dropping a small rubber model of Godzilla there into what appears to be boiling water.
And we're going to see him turn into a skeleton.
Yeah, the only time Godzilla's ever seen to truly die in a movie.
No, you're wrong.
Oh, what was the other time?
You never saw Godzilla versus Destroyer?
Well, he's resurrected at the end of it, though.
No, he's not.
Yeah, he comes back roaring and screaming.
No, that's not Godzilla. It's the sound is implanted over there, but it's not Godzilla.
Who is that then?
It's just an audio clip because he's dead. That's supposed to be his second on-screen death.
Oh, then why is he shown clawing and screaming?
I don't know. Maybe that's just like a memory or something.
Oh, I don't know. See, I didn't get that. I thought that proved that he rose, that he came back out of it.
No, that's supposed to be his death.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No, I had no clue. No, when I saw at the end, I thought, oh, see, he's not dead.
Oh man, this is so good. I love that they're upset about what they've done to Godzilla, because Godzilla wasn't evil per se. He was just a destructive force acting on mankind.
Yeah.
Godzilla was no more evil than a tornado is
I was going to
evil.
say a tornado, because a tornado doesn't know what it does. Has no conscience.
When a tornado comes into your town and destroys 3 houses and 2 of them happen to be inhabited, it's not doing it on purpose. And that's how Godzilla is. He's a force of nature.
Yeah, he's always seen as a force of nature, which is the best way to portray him. I didn't like him when he became the hero and protector of children and all that. I used to tell people, I said, well, they've made a certain series of Godzilla just for children, so it won't be frightening, just so I could excuse, because people said, look how bad it's gotten, and I didn't want Godzilla to have gotten bad. So I told people, I said, they've made a immature children's series, so kids won't be frightened. They go, oh, and they let it go with that.
Well, remember, you and me, we have been Godzilla fans long enough to know when this stuff was obscure, before all these stupid normies showed up and started making it mainstream.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have an underground quality anymore, which was bolstered by those great monster magazines and
Yeah.
stuff that came out.
Fangoria. I want to find a couple of older Fangoria.
Fangoria is coming back into print. Did you know that?
No.
Yes, it is. I know some people that actually work there, and they've already made the announcement. It'll be a print zine once again.
I'm going to buy it. I'll subscribe to it. So we've just talked over Godzilla or Gojira.
1954,
No Raymond Burr.
black and white.
Raymond Burr does add some stuff to his version, I
Yeah.
have to say.
Yeah.
Because, if you're watching it, it does make it feel like he's the lone American in this insane situation. And it makes him feel isolated.
And he can't get out either. Nobody can come and get him. It's so dangerous.
I have to admit that if I were to make a Godzilla movie, I would have at least one American character stuck in Tokyo in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
And instead of being a reporter, I would honestly have him posting videos to YouTube.
Well, yeah.
Because he would be trying to get, he would be Skyping with his family back home.
I like the YouTube idea. Let's pretend he's so isolated. There's no family to talk to.
Yeah.
And he's just trying to get his message out to anybody because he feels like I'm here like almost on an alien planet. And how do I tell people what's happening?
Well,
here?
see, the idea that I had was that he would bump into the ancestors of the Yamani family, and he would go and he would become friends with them in America at a college, and they would invite him to Japan like over spring break or something.
That sounds good.
And that's when the shit would hit the fan.
Or a summer class.
Yeah, or because Professor Yamani would be, even an ancestor of his would be famous.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the Godzilla didn't really happen. It was an accidental atomic test on Tokyo, and that's when the shit would start to hit the fan. That would be my idea.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Because when the last legendary Godzilla came out, I have to admit I was kind of disappointed they brought in the Mutos. Because I wanted it to be just Godzilla, and I wanted him to be a badass force of destruction again.
Well, they feel like with today's audiences, with the lack of attention span and all that there had to be a contest of strength, And there's no, think about the marketing, and this is what kills a lot of movies, because it's like, how can we market it? If we can't make a game out of it and we can't make something else out of it, then it doesn't fly. So if he doesn't have a foe, there's no game to make out of it.
Well, what's funny about it is when you consider his role in that movie, what happens? One Muto wakes up, the female Muto wakes up, and they want to fuck each other. Godzilla's basically trying to keep two kaiju from fucking in that movie. Did you ever think of it like that?
No.
That's his entire role. He just wants to shut them the fuck up so he can go back to sleep.
Because like two cats mating outside your bedroom window. All night long, the male cat's going, "I'm getting me some!"
And you just want to find him with a shovel and decapitate him.
Yeah, just open the window and go, "Shut up!"
That's Godzilla's whole role in that movie. Have you ever really thought of it? You won't be able to watch it the same way anymore, will you?
No, and I just saw it again about a year ago. I wasn't thinking that at all. I kept saying, okay, here comes the cool part. Here comes the next cool part.
So I think this is going to wrap it up for our first YouTube podcast commentary of Gojira. We will try to do a second one of King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, that one and King Kong Escapes. That'd be a good one too.
Okay, so we will start trying to put these out on a regular basis. So let's wrap this up. This has been Zach Shaw. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification button. And this is my co-host and special guest,
Brad Moore.
And we are signing off. Happy birthday, Godzilla.